All right, well, welcome to live discussion number 5. Sorry about last week. We had to postpone a week. Something came up that was unavoidable. So I appreciate everybody's flexibility. I've got some really good news. The MOOC has opened for enrollment, and I should find out in a couple of days how many people have signed up on that. And it starts on March 13th. And if you are watching this from the MOOC, this recorded session, then I say welcome, and I also say tell your friends and families to enroll in the MOOC. It's free, and that goes to everybody from the University of Arizona, University of Florida, and Drexel. Tell your friends if you enjoyed the class, if you think it'll be valuable for folks, if you think there's folks out there that could contribute to this effort and the efforts of Earthrise 2068. And Constellation, then please encourage them to join. And I'm going to make another pitch for the Facebook page. You guys have been coming up with some really great stuff, really great insights. And so I encourage you, so that the people on the MOOC and everybody else can see them, to copy and paste your comments into the Earthrise 2068 Facebook page and engage with other people's comments. Add your comments to other people's stuff. Okay, cool. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to try this again this week. Is there anybody here from the University of Florida? All right, that's disappointing, I think. Let's see. Oh, we got somebody. Karina, howdy. All right, you're the first person that we've had from the University of Florida. Hopefully there's more out there, but welcome. We're glad that you're in this conversation as well. All right, so I'm going to jump right in. In week 6, or at least Drexel's week 6, I'm not sure if everything is lined up. A couple weeks ago, the VoiceThread discussion was talking about how we're going to examine ways to better align discrete points of creativity and innovation into unified coordinated action. And we were going to evaluate case studies like reCAPTCHA, Duolingo, for their feasibility to extend the message and utility of Earthrise 2068. So we're going to hold on that part of the discussion because actually I didn't see anybody answer that part of the discussion in VoiceThread, but we'll get back to that because I think it's going to relate to this next VoiceThread topic. But another point of discussion was to ask you guys to compare and contrast examples from your own lives where you participated in a cohesive team with ones that had factors that were good, and then ones that had factors that were counterproductive. And I also posed the question: do you agree or disagree that the world needs more collaboration to overcome our shared problems? And if you do agree, in your opinion, what are the most effective ways to communicate this need for a deeper level of collaboration? I will say that it was unanimous. Every single person who commented on VoiceThread commented that we do need a deeper level of collaboration to solve our shared problems. And so I'm going to I wrote down some of the highlights from those points that you guys taking the course have made, and I'm going to go through that. And again, this is a two-way discussion, so at any time, just jump in, just key your mic and start talking. Just interrupt me. Feel free to interrupt me at any point, to jump in, to add comments, to ask questions, if I'm talking about something that you said and you want to expound on it a little bit, then jump in. So here's some of the points. Well, before I begin, does anybody have any questions or any comments at this point? Okay. All right, so the best way to collaborate, again, these are the students' words in the course. The best way to collaborate towards solutions is to be open and transparent about every step in decision making. And I think that is a really very, very key point. And I think one of the main impediments to us being able to solve the problems that we face is the fact that a lot of the really critical decisions affecting the course of our world are not made in an open, transparent way. They're made behind closed doors. We have no idea what a lot of times the motivation is behind them, and I think that's a big impediment to effective problem solving and collaboration. Somebody pointed out, I think it's hard for someone who's worrying about finding their next meal to worry about the overall health of the planet. And so that brings up something really important that we talked about in the book and have talked about before. Emmanuel Jal has a good way of saying that peace is when my belly is full. If you don't, if you're hungry, you're not going to know that law exists. You're not going to know that you need to collaborate and cooperate towards higher goals if you're trying to survive from day to day. I think that should be obvious. That's why, as part of our Earthwise 2068 project, as part of coming up with these principles that we want to live under in the year 2068, in order to come up with the basic operating system of our society in 2068, we have these basic human rights that we feel, or you guys felt, and I agreed with you, that were crucial to being able to solve all the other problems we face. We have to be able to have everyone at a basic level of having their basic needs met. All right. The two biggest factors that I have learned are important for effective teamwork are honesty and accountability. So that goes back to openness and transparency. But accountability is more than openness and transparency. Is being responsible. It's delivering what you say you're going to deliver. It's living up to your promises. It's doing that in a way that's obvious and open. And I've heard a lot of stories from you guys on ineffective teams where people were promising things and not delivering, and that usually the awareness of that usually comes at the worst moment when deadlines are coming up. All right, the project has only been successfully done when all team members work hard to achieve the common goal. And I think that pretty much is obvious, but what I'll add to that is that you don't always need exact goals. You might not even have to have common goals. You have to have aligned goals, though, at a minimum. You have to have complementary goals at a minimum. They don't necessarily have to be the same goal, as long as they're not mutually exclusive. I think that we can have things work. So anybody, as I take a sip of water here, anybody have anything they want to add? Crickets. Okay, I'll keep going. When a team sticks together and communicates successfully, the project goals can be achieved much easier and faster because the team members respect each other, and it's much more peaceful and even fun to work with people you like and respect. So, and that's that might seem trivial, that it should be fun, and you should get along with everybody. It's not a requirement that you get along with everybody. It's not a requirement that you enjoy being with those people. It's not a requirement that you're having fun. But if you are, then you're going to be a lot more effective and a lot more efficient, and your results are going to be a lot better. So it's always good to foster that type of working relationship where everybody gets along and has fun, because fun. If you're having fun, you're more open to innovation, creativity, and progress. All right, effectiveness stemmed from each individual's recognition of being part of a team rather than focusing on job descriptions or responsibilities. The company presidents, this is somebody talking about, I think, an internship they worked on. The company president's model was create value every day, which is basically saying to do more than what is asked of you for the good of the team. I think that attitude of putting the team first is one of the most important facets of great collaboration and must be instilled early in the project. The open-ended nature of creating value allowed employees to have a sense of freedom and ownership of the success rather than feeling like a replaceable cog in the machine. I think that's really important. So the open-ended nature of creating value allowed employees to have a sense of freedom and ownership. So freedom to innovate. There are some organizations where conformity is valued over innovation, and that's, I guess, okay for some things. But if you're trying to come to a creative, innovative solution to a very hard problem, I think you're going to need some creativity to do that. And one of the ways you breed creativity is by instilling a sense of freedom and ownership in those team members that are collaborating with you. So that was a really good point. All right, one of the most paramount proponents in establishing collaboration within a group is to build trust amongst the group's members. I couldn't agree with that more, because the more trust you have among the members of a team that you're collaborating with, the more effective the team is going to be, the more efficient the team is going to be, and the faster the team will be able to react. And we talked about examples of this in the book, where if you run into a crisis and you trust that your team members are going to be able to deliver in that crisis, then you'll be able to get through that crisis a lot easier. If you have to check on everything they're doing, if you're having to question everything they're doing, then that's going to bog down the process. It's going to slow it down, and it's going to hurt your ability to overcome crises. All right, Elizabeth. Plus, I think gaps in productivity are more likely to be filled than by team members. All right, good point, Elizabeth. I encourage everybody, as opposed to typing in the chat window, if you could just jump in, because that gives me a chance to stop talking and save my voice. I'm being very selfish at the moment, but plus I want to hear what you. It's a lot easier to engage in conversation though when we're actually speaking versus typing, because obviously we're already on to the next point before I notice that one. So interrupt me. All right. Collaboration is essential to overcoming our shared problems on Earth. I think that media is a key device that we can use to communicate this need. Positive, reliable, and transparent use of media, which I assume also includes social media, could effectively bring together and can help to establish trust. Okay, so I think when we're talking about social media, so informal media, if you will, media where there's not a formal organization around it, I think is particularly powerful, because it doesn't have a lot of the boundaries and stipulations that traditional media have. So it's a lot more flexible, a lot more agile. And let's hold that conversation for later, because I think that's a key point that we'll come back to, a very, very important point. All right. Okay. All right. So Elizabeth's internet's not working well enough to interrupt, or I would. It's okay. All right, collaboration between nations is an integral part in solving the world's problems. Most of these issues act like a type of cancer. Just because one area of the world is cured does not mean the problem is solved. We need to work together to solve these issues everywhere in the world. Also, like cancer, these issues have differing solutions depending on their location. For example, while implementing large-scale solar plants may be a valid replacement for fossil fuels in America, it may be impossible to implement that in Japan due to land shortages. This multi-solution approach to problem solving is one of the greatest arguments for world collaboration. The only way we can solve each problem is to solve it everywhere at once. The only way to solve these problems all at once is to develop multiple solutions. And the easiest way to devise multiple solutions is to collaborate with multiple people with a wide variety of perspectives. So that's a brilliant statement right there. And I really like the analogy of equating these seemingly intractable problems to a cancer. There is not one size fits all. I hope you got that out of the reading as well. That a lot of times, when we're slapping Band-Aids on things, we think the same Band-Aid is going to fix the same thing everywhere, and that's not the case. So, anybody have anything to say about that? What do you guys think of that analogy of cancer?
I guess I'll jump in here. I think it's definitely very accurate, because if you don't cure, if we're thinking about it as cancer, if you don't cure it across the body, then it's possible that it could metastasize. So it could pop up anywhere else on the planet if you don't cure it everywhere at once.
Good point. And that was Josh, right, from Drexel?
That was Neil.
Okay. All right. Thanks. It's hard for me to tell who's speaking. So if you just say your name and what university you're from, okay, that would help us. Okay. The first step to collaborating and solving issues is to bring your differences to the table, discuss them learn from them and find ways to put them aside and move on to the mission. And this was an example that one of the students brought up about a program to bring girls together, Israeli, Jewish and Palestinian girls together, and to basically have them learn from each other to establish the fact that they have more in common than what separates them, and what they've been taught separates them, and to try and break down some of the artificial boundaries and borders that keep us from working together. And so I agree that one of the first steps to collaborating is to bring our differences to the table. And a lot of times, these differences, or most times, are not a detriment to the collaboration process. They're an asset. Because if you have differences, that means you see things from a slightly different perspective. And if you see things from a slightly different perspective, that creates stereo vision, if you will. That creates depth perception. And we have very complicated problems that have depth to them. And if you don't have the depth that's afforded by having slightly offsetting different angles of viewing things, you're not going to get to see that true solution. So we should embrace those differences and use them to solve problems. All right. One of the most significant contributors to problems and tension within the world has been ignorance, a difficulty to understand someone's perspective on a matter while holding your own values to be the only truth. In order to fully establish long-term collaboration and rid the world of stubborn ignorance, it is vital to first be more self-aware and empathetic. Being self-aware and realizing your particular views aren't the only ones applicable establishes a comprehension that to fully understand a subject, you must approach with different perspectives from all walks of life, not just your own. This openness to others and ability to listen before speaking not only removes the veil of ignorance that surrounds so many, but creates the building blocks for collaborations. So this is, again, a really, really good point. It's kind of goes back to what I just said about the depth of problems. But what it focuses on, and why I wanted to bring it up, is this has to come from within. Because a lot of people it's very easy for people to understand that other people are saying things as truth when it's just their opinion of a situation or their perspective of a situation, but they think it's the only perspective, the only viable, the only real, the only valid perspective. So the first step in being able to incorporate these differences and use them as an asset is to realize that your perspective may not be the only perspective, and to, as the student said here, listen before you speak and try and find out what those differences are. So I think that's a really good point. So that is the last voice thread comment that I wanted to bring up about this particular topic. So anybody have anything to add for factors of collaboration, what leads to good collaboration, why the world needs more collaboration, how we can get together and solve these problems?
Hi, can you guys hear me? I'm not totally sure. Okay, cool. So hi, I'm Josh from Drexel. I just wanted to speak about the, checking out other people's perspectives thing. It's a good idea. I think if we, work a little bit harder to, I think teaching people at the younger ages to, learn about and appreciate other people's perspectives and worldviews and whatnot would really help to, fully ingrain that ability to accept others' beliefs while still maintaining your own. Like, I know a lot of the other cultures and perspectives classes in my K through 12 schooling, even some of the classes called world perspectives were really just glorified history classes. And not that history is bad, we should continue to learn about that too. But I think, education institutions should maybe work a little bit harder to kind of separate the two so that you can still teach about, history, but also teach about, what's going on in the modern world with what everyone's thinking and feeling and all that stuff.
Yeah, Josh, I think you bring up a really good point that educating students about the value of other people's perspective is something that should be taught very, very young in life. And it's not because we have to teach children something they don't already know. It's that they're, from the day they're born, the day that they can comprehend what's going on around them, they're being constantly bombarded with the opposite message. They're being constantly bombarded with how they should act and how they should think about other people and how they and who's good and who's not, and who's to blame for this and who's to blame for that, and who's got the right path and who doesn't have the right path. And so to counter that bombardment of the denial of our interconnectedness is required to start at an early age. So I think if they weren't bombarded with all that, then there'd be no need to educate them, because I think children are born that way. Children have to learn how to hate, for instance. Children have to learn how to isolate themselves from others. People have to learn to dislike a certain group of people. It's not something that's natural or inherent. Okay, Jay, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that informal learning, informal sharing, developing mutual respect are all key factors. And also, when we are trying to think about global problems and their solutions, brainstorming has to happen. And that brainstorming should happen in a very cohesive environment, open to ideas, open to discussion, respect. All of this should play a very important role. And I also think that this collaboration teaching should happen right from elementary school, when the little kids, and so that when we build on that base, so when they go to college, when they go to high school, when they go to work in companies or corporate environments, or even whatever profession they choose, that values are intact and they begin to collaborate worldwide.
I couldn't agree more. And it's bad enough that sometimes we don't respect people as individuals, but I think what's even worse than that is not respecting people as a member, just simply because they're a member of a group, whether that's a cultural group, an ethnic group, a national identity, whatever it is. They get lumped in, and when you take that to an extreme, that can be, those groups can be viewed as less human than us, right? And if they're viewed as less human than us, then that introduces all kinds of evils that could be, and it's not the truth, right? So when in doubt, stick to the truth. That's my nugget of wisdom for the day. All right.
Hello.
So, yes.
Hi, Ron. This is Karina from University of Florida.
Hey, Karina.
Hi. I just wanted to say that what you were saying about the children and how they're taught, like, I completely agree with that. When I do community service, I usually do it with young children, and when I see them doing collaborative projects, you'll see them, it's really easy for them to compromise and make decisions with each other, and they're very easygoing and flowing, and then they come to decisions really quickly. But then me being on internships and working with professional people, adults, it's a completely different situation at times. It's a lot harder for people to come to decisions, and I think that's because it's almost, I feel seen as a sign of weakness to take somebody else's point of view or listen to somebody else's idea and back down because even now, I would say that I've been taught to voice my opinion and voice my idea, to be seen as a leader and to have others follow me. And if you just sit there in the background and let others tell you how to go about the project or whatever it is that you're doing, then you're not leading the pack or what have you. And I think that's a problem with collaboration in general.
So, Karina, what age were the students that you were working with that were able to collaborate effortlessly?
They were elementary school, I want to say around 8 and under.
Yeah, so if these barriers to collaboration are a learned trait that we have, if you learned it, you can unlearn it, right? So I think that's what we're trying to get at here, and that's why so many of you have stated that this educational process needs to start very early, because the longer you wait, the more damage occurs, for lack of a better word, and the less likely we are to get back to the truth. Cool, thanks. All right, so I'm going to jump into next week's discussion just to introduce it, but also it ties back to something that we talked about in this week's discussion. So for the week 8 discussion, week 8 for Drexel timeline, which, by the way, I know the University of Arizona is just about to finish up, and I think you're going to be done before the next time we meet, which is a week from today. But I do encourage you guys to tune in next week. We want you in this conversation, and we want you to stick with it even after the course is over for everybody. So in this discussion, we will address some of the suggestions to create a Project X-like movement to propel Earthrise 2068. We will also examine ways to develop an actual or virtual control room of Spaceship Earth and implications for our global society. So going back to the discussion point in this week's voice thread, where we talked about using things like reCAPTCHA and things like Duolingo. So just to refresh everybody's memory, reCAPTCHA are these things that you type in websites to prove that you're a human, right? So you get these squiggly letters and words, and you type in what you see, and that's how the program knows that you're a human. But if you ever typed in ones that have 2 of those, then one is proving that you're a human, and the other one is an unrecognized word in a book that was trying to be digitized by software. And so unknowingly, millions of people all around the world are digitizing books that otherwise couldn't be digitized. And Duolingo is a language program that uses similar crowdsourced ways to collaborate. And so this is a different type of collaboration. If you don't know that you're actually collaborating, there's no need for establishing trust and all these other things that we talked about that makes a good collaboration. And there are some problems, like digitizing books, that lend themselves well to these type of things. And so one of the points that was made was that throughout history, all the biggest projects in the world, the maximum number of people that were involved in those projects, whether they were building the pyramids or sending a man to the moon or whatever it was about 100,000 people. And the reason for that is because of before the invention of the internet, there was not really an effective way to coordinate the actions of more than that. And so the point was, if we can build pyramids or send a man on the moon with 100,000 people, imagine what we can do with 100 million people. And so there, what can we apply this type of collaboration to? And when we talked about Project X, Project X was this imaginary project that was unlike the traditional formal collaborations that got us to the moon, that built the International Space Station, that relied on treaties and contracts and licensing and all this stuff. But it takes more of a organic, grassroots type of collaboration that some of the technologies and the information age have made available. Some of the same technologies that allow people, perfect strangers, to spend the night in each other's homes on a system like Airbnb, or to get in somebody's car like Uber. There's a level of trust that's established through these programs that does not require formal licensing or a formal interview process. It's very lengthy and time-consuming and resource dependent. And so we've got this vision of our future that you guys help build. How can we, using this type of technology, using these types of approaches, how can we propel that message, propel the milestones, the roadmap to get to that vision, to nudge the trajectory of our global society, to put us on a course to get to that envisioned future. So what do you guys think about that? Who's ever typing, speak instead of type.
I guess I have one or two things I want to mention. I know I kind of read this a while ago, and I did try it. It was kind of neat. In terms of the reCAPTCHA stuff, I had not heard about that, where they're specifically trying to get you to type out words so that they can recognize that this means that. That's new to me. But what I had heard was that if you are in a situation that has two of the reCAPTCHA words, you do have to type two things, but only one of those has to be correct. There's little tricks to kind of tell which word needs to be correct, but I found that kind of like you could just type in like 1 million characters of spam for one of the words, and then the other one had to be correct, and you got through no problem. That was just my little thing on that. But
well, it's the one that you have to type correct. The one that you have to type correct is the one that's proving that you're a human. The other one, it doesn't know the right answer too. That's why it's asking you for the right answer.
I find it interesting.
Right. So if you don't want them to listen to you, if you don't want them taking your information like that, you could just type in whatever, and they have to try get it from other people. But I want to speak a tiny bit on Duolingo as well, because I've on and off used that, and I really like it. I know if I had actually stuck with it a lot more, it would have been really useful. But I think if you're going to teach people languages, you're going to need better ways of getting it to them. Like I don't know if they have a web version of it. Like I know I just have it on my phone, but obviously not everyone has smartphones and whatnot. So if they want to spread language learning a little bit better, you should try to develop a little more web-based. I mean, unless they already have it, I don't really know. I haven't touched it in a while, but
well, I think
it's a good idea. So
yeah, there is a computer-based version of Duolingo, but how can we? I guess the question is, how do we apply these type of technologies, these type of projects to Earthrise 2068? And somebody is typing, and it's if you guys are not speaking, if you can mute, that would be great. And I did hear somebody else try and chime in with a comment.
I think that was me. I just found it interesting that we have this developed technology for the capture thing where people are collaborating without even knowing it to get this digitized. And
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I think somebody's typing and I can't hear you over the typing. So whoever's typing, if you can mute your mic, that would be great. And if whoever was speaking, if you could just identify yourself so I know who's speaking.
Hi, it's Elizabeth Erickson from Drexel.
Hi, Elizabeth.
I find it interesting that this CAPTCHA thing with people without even knowing that the purpose of the second one was to digitize it, as Josh was saying, have even found ways to circumnavigate it to avoid collaborating without even realizing that that's what they were doing, that they managed to be oh, look, we don't have to collaborate. We can find a way to get out of this. It's just kind of interesting about the human mindset on the topic.
Yeah, so it's human effort that otherwise would be wasted, right? So you're just making use of something that nobody else is using and to do something good with it. So is there any suggestions from anybody on how we can apply that to this co-imagined future and communicating that and inspiring people to start working towards it?
Hi, this is Karina from UF. I don't know if this is gonna come off weird, but you were could you like say the what you were saying like in a sentence really quick, because I kind of got lost in what you were saying, like about the reCAPTCHA.
Yeah. So there are ways. Well, there's two things here. Okay. There's the Project X. We talked about. I guess not everybody's in the same place in the book, but towards the end of the book, we start talking about Project X. I think in the last chapter, where it's this imaginary program that is informal. It's grassroots. It's organic. It doesn't require formal treaties and contracts. It's loosely organized, and how powerful those type of collaborations can be where it's appropriate to use them. So that's one thing. The other thing is these efforts and technology like reCAPTCHA, like Duolingo. In Duolingo's case, it's the goal of Duolingo is not only to teach people languages, but in the process of people learning the language, they're helping to translate the internet into every language on the planet. And there's a lot of good reasons for that, because the poor benefit the most from language training, and the poor also benefit the most from having the internet translated into their language. And there's also reCAPTCHA, right, where there's algorithms that digitize books that can't recognize all the words, so that they get humans to basically tell the computer what the word is, and they don't actually even know that they're doing it. And that's leading to millions of books being digitized every year that wouldn't be digitized without this effort. And this effort is effort that would be wasted if it wasn't applied to this. So, how can we use things like Project X? How can we use things like this massive collaboration technology to communicate and to steer our civilization towards the future that we want to have? Does that make it clearer, Karina?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, super.
I have something just to add to this. This is Brandon from U of A. Kind of combining when I read about the Project X and these Uber apps and the Airbnb, which are things that use effortlessly, I was thinking of a future with maybe some kind of app that has volunteerism. Like you put in, I like to take care of animals. I like to do Habitat for Humanity type projects. And then every time one of those things come available in your area, it's a great way to get people that would have never found out. Like if I want to join Habitat for Humanity, I don't know how to do so in my local community. But this app would say, all you have to do is submit here, and we will call you and have you come out and do this particular thing. I think something like that can really get a lot of people out, instead of just sitting at home doing nothing, to go and do some of these projects and help out.
Yeah, and that's one of the case studies in the book is impossible.com, that's exactly how that works. That you post that you have a need, and somebody says I can help you out there, and there's no exchange of money. It's just one person doing something good for somebody else. So I think, and those are very, very powerful programs, and we've proved over and over again that they actually work.
Hi, this is Charlotte from Drexel. Can I chime in here? I would just like to add that I think that's a great idea, having an app. And I think in addition to that, the people in an area are the ones who really know what needs to change and what projects need to happen. So having that app available for both people to volunteer, but also, people to be able to say, I have an idea of a project that could really help my community, and this is what I think needs to be done. I think that we could really benefit from something like that.
You bet. I definitely agree. Okay, is there any other comments about that? Because there is one more thing I want to talk about in this live session. But I don't want to leave this topic if you guys have anything else that you want to say about it, because it's really important. It's a very powerful potential tool for collaboration.
Hi, this is Neil from Drexel again. I just wanted to bring up another platform that I've heard of that follows a similar concept to reCAPTCHA and Duolingo. It's called Fold It, and it's essentially a game that people play to attempt to solve the folding of proteins, because as it stands right now, it's very difficult to figure out how proteins are folded, and computer algorithms aren't particularly good at it. So essentially what this game does is it tries to tap into humans' like pattern recognition and just advanced mental capabilities to figure out how these proteins are folded. And I know in the past, users of this game actually solved one of the like HIV enzymes folding structure, and they actually have like a whole bunch of publications of the folding structures of different proteins that were solved by humans, essentially just playing the game and trying to figure out how these proteins are folded.
Yeah, Neil, that's another really good example. And what they found from that is the best protein folders were people they never thought would be protein folders. It was very difficult to predict who would be particularly skilled at that, and some people really, some surprising people really rose to the top. And so yeah, that's another great example. So imagine you have hundreds of millions of people folding proteins because it's fun to do, and now you imagine all the problems you could solve with that. Okay, cool. So I'm going to just change topics just for a second in the time we have remaining, because I tried to quantify the orbital perspective as a decision-making tool, because there's a lot happening in America right now. There's a lot happening in the world. There's a lot of decisions being made that affect the trajectory of our global society. There's a lot of things that are courses of action that are being taken right now that will definitely change where we are in 2068. And so I came up with 5 orbital perspective tests to apply to decision making. And I posted this, by the way, in the Facebook page. So if you want to comment there too, that would be great. So test number 1, in addition to the area of concern, does the decision or solution also work in the context of the rest of the world? Does it cause harm elsewhere? An orbital perspective solution, at a minimum, should be neutral outside the area of concern. Ideally, it would be beneficial and restorative. So what I mean by that is, if the area of concern is your community, if the area of concern is your company, if the area of concern is yourself, if you're making a decision and that decision is at the benefit of the community or the company or yourself, but at the expense of others, then that's not a decision that's being made within the orbital perspective. And so there's usually 99.9% of the time, there's a way to get to the point that you want to get to, and instead of causing harm outside of your area of concern, you could actually cause benefit, or at least be neutral. All right, and again, stop me on any of these things. And Jay, if you want to talk, it's much better if you just chime in audio, because it's just easier to get into the conversation that way.
One of the things I'm observing is that trend in fake news these days promoted to media, and these fake news results in some kind of misunderstanding later on, mistrust it generates, and causes failures in collaboration.
Yeah, and that's test number 5. So let's talk about that, but let's talk about that when we get to test number 5, because you're reading my mind. Okay, so test number 2, does the decision or solution keep the priorities planet, society, economy, as opposed to economy, society, planet? So if short-term financial factors are the driving force of a decision, if the sole focus of a decision is short-term financial factors, then that course of action will not be sustainable. The reality, and you guys should all know this because you're this far along in the course, the reality of the world that we live in is the economy is the wholly owned subsidiary of the biosphere, of the earth, of our environment. So any course of action that treats the environment as the wholly owned subsidiary of the economy, which almost, well, I should say almost, but many business decisions treat the environment as the wholly owned subsidiary of the economy, those decisions are not in accordance with reality. That's not the reality of the world we live in. The reality of the world we live in is that our economy is based on our civilization, which is embedded and dependent on the biosphere. So any course of action that treats the environment as the wholly owned subsidiary of the economy is not only not in accordance with reality, it will be destructive in the long term. So that's test number 2. And again, stop me if you want to talk about any of that. Okay, so test number 3, and this is a really key point, and it's a point that I think is being missed right now in a big way. If you project out the effects of a decision or a course of action to your great-grandchildren's generation, are the effects positive and restorative, or are they negative? So basically, if our great-grandchildren are going to be harmed by a decision or a solution that we're implementing now, then we're selling out our great-grandchildren's generation and their great-grandchildren's generation for our own present benefit, and that's not right. And so a lot of times, and we've said this over and over again, part of the orbital perspective is taking a long-term temporal approach to problem solving. You know, what are things going to look like 20, 30, 50, 100 years down the road? Because a lot of times things that look really good in the short term make absolutely no sense in the long term and are very destructive. Okay, test number 4. Is the solution open and transparent? Does the solution permit everyone to see how the sausage is being made? Basically, you know, what are the implications of the decision? What's going into the decision? What are the motivations? Would the course of action survive being put into the spotlight, or does it require secrecy to be successful? And you all have really talked at length about how important openness and transparency are, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think when you shine a light on things, things become clear. Corruption becomes a lot more difficult. You're in an environment that can be more effective, more innovative, more efficient. Okay, here comes the last point, test number 5, which goes back to what Jay was saying. Was the solution or decision based on the most accurate data possible, enabling the most accurate predictions of the decision's effects on the trajectory of our planetary society? So if you go back to test number 3, where we talked about our great-grandchildren's generations, what's the effect going to be? There's no way for you to know what the effects are going to be if the factors going into the decision are not known. If you don't have truth data, if you don't have real scientific, or at least the best available data at the time to make your decision. And as Jay pointed out, there's a lot of misinformation right now. There's a lot of opinions that are being communicated as facts. There's even worse than that. There's a trend where opinions have risen in importance over facts. The facts are not that important. What's important is opinions. And opinions don't steer a spaceship. Data steers a spaceship. And I got news for everybody. We're on a spaceship. It's called Spaceship Earth, and they have a real effect. Those decisions have a real effect on the trajectory of our planet and where we're going. And so some calls to action of this whole thing is, in order to ensure that we're steering the Spaceship Earth on the best course possible, the answer to all 5 of those questions have to be positive. And we have a right as citizens to demand that our elected officials are making the right decisions for the right reasons. And we also have not only a right, but an obligation and a responsibility to hold them accountable when they're not. Okay, what do you guys think about the 5? Am I missing any? Are those 5 tests all inclusive, or are there other things that we should talk about? All right, well, I'll let you guys, go ahead. Hi, Karina.
I'm just curious, like, I don't know if this sounds like bad or whatever, but like for test 3, I'm curious, like, how much do people actually care about like future generations, or like generations beyond what they can actually see? Like, beyond their grandkids per se? Like,
Yeah, I don't know that. I think that varies from person to person, and I think if you're trying to make this point that we should think of our great grandkids and they're having a hard time understanding that, then just take what you can get. Say, okay, what about your children's generation? How about that? Can we talk about your children's generation? And I think if we take an incremental step towards that shift in perspective, because it is a shift in perspective for a lot of people, and we take it one step at a time, then it won't be a giant leap, right? So, I think if you're thinking about your great grandchildren's generation, then by definition, hopefully you're thinking of your children's generation as well. So, but I agree with you. It's difficult for a lot of people to think that far in the future. But the reason why I phrased it that way, as opposed to saying 50 years down the road or 100 years down the road, is because I wanted to make it personal. I wanted people to have a personal identity with a person that they haven't met yet, but is a blood relative to them, so that they realize that that should be important to them. Okay. Okay. So in the last couple minutes we have, I want to talk about the final project. I'm sure you guys want to talk about the final project too. So I'm just going to read your instructions. You're tasked to come up with your own way to communicate the imagined future crafted by our Earthrise 2068 project to the widest audience and with the most engagement possible. So if we come up with all these great ideas and we don't communicate them with people, and we don't inspire and motivate people to start moving in that direction, then it's kind of a useless exercise, right? This is an action course, and so we want to inspire action. So in addition, you should include 3 ways that people can continue to be involved with the Earthrise 2068 project after this course ends. And I encourage everybody to stay involved. I want to know if you are going to stay involved and how you're going to stay involved. There's absolutely no implications for the grading of the course, but I hope that you are inspired by this course to stay involved. And so these are your opinions, and you're to communicate them in any way you want. There is no restrictions. So it could be a short paper, 1 to 3 pages, a blog post, you can create a website, you can do a social media post, you can make a video, or any other form of communication that you choose. I want you to be as creative as you can. And you're also responsible for determining a way to submit your project for grading. And this could be as simple as just providing a link to a website or whatever, or to a paper or what it is. You're also, if you want to collaborate with other people that are in this course, you're welcome to do that. I encourage even inter-university collaboration. So if folks from the University of Florida want to collaborate with Drexel or Arizona or vice versa, then that's highly encouraged as well. So in the last couple minutes of this lesson, are there any questions on the final project? All right, Elizabeth, did you have something that you wanted to say? Okay, well, if there are no questions, then we will end this session, and I'm going to stop the recording, and we are going to meet again next week. And I know that the Wildcats are going to be done with the course, but I hope you guys are here too. And we'll see you next week. So we'll be